we are gonna make Kitcheri, right? What is Kitcheri? So Kitcheri traditionally is a great, easy to digest food, but we're gonna show you different modifications of the whole thing. And let's go through all the basic ingredients. So that way, if you wanna cook along, you'll be able to, or you can just gather the ingredients and get ready for your next meal. So first ingredient, rice. We've got our rice here. Banyan does beautiful because they're, organic, sustainable. So we've got rice, and then we've got yellow Mung dal. Two key ingredients as the absolute base foundation of making Kitcheri. The other simple ingredient that you'll need is ghee or some sort of oil. I'm gonna use ghee, it's traditionally used. We've already just made some fresh ghee here, so we have it. You can use avocado oil if you like, or the oil of your choice, but ghee's fantastic for it. And the last thing you will need for the baseline Kitcheri is a little turmeric. And then you can have salt, and I'm going to show you all these variations of it. Other variations, as you see we're going to make, will be different vegetables and different seasonings that we can add to the whole thing. So let's take a look at what we have so that we get an idea of all the ingredients. And remember, all this stuff is super optional, but I'm going to tell you from an Ayurveda side when you would use what and why you're going to use it based on the dosha, how you're feeling, what you want to create in digestion, all this good stuff. So let's just go through the whole thing. We have some fresh chard here, beautiful. You can also use kale if it's in season. You can also use mustard greens if they're in season. So any kind of green that you love, leafy greens. Spinach, when it's in season, it's beautiful also. We have a little red onion, a little bit sweeter. We have some fresh green beans. And some of the stuff you see I've already got chopped up, so it's ready to go. We have some fresh cilantro. Then if you want to add some grounding veggies, we've got some carrots, sweet potatoes of two different types. We've got the red or orange kind, or yam, depending on if you're in the South also, you can call it. And then we've got the white. And then for some of our seasonings, and we're going to talk about why we want some of these seasonings and when. We have some garlic. I have some shredded fresh ginger, cinnamon, and then this, my friend, is my favorite. It is called a curry leaf. I actually have a big plant at home, so it's fresh off the plant, and they smell so good. And it's great for digestion also. And then some of the smaller seasonings that we have is salt, which is gonna be to taste, some cumin, we have some clove, mustard seeds, and turmeric, which you already heard me talk about. So now as we go through and we make everything, I'll tell you why we add and how we modify. First, let's make our basic version so that way you have that down, and then you'll see how to modify it. So it's super simple. So let's open up our bags and we'll talk about all these ingredients as we go along. I'm gonna open up the yellow Mung dal. Now, yellow Mung dal, great source of protein. It is easier to digest than some of the other dals. And we're just gonna take a 1/4 cup of the yellow Mung dal. Traditionally, you can use equal parts of the Mung dal and of the rice. That is a traditional mix. If you want less carbs, you can do less rice, and you want more protein, you can do more dal. Another nice variation that I make at home sometimes when we don't want any carbs, depending on who's eating, if you have someone that has more like diabetic or is watching their carb intake or more on a keto side, I'll use the Mung dal, and then instead of the rice, I'll put equal portions of quinoa, which is a fantastic substitute. And quinoa just has so many great benefits too. But you're gonna essentially cook it the exact same way. So just take a note of that. And now I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of the rice, so equal portions. Now this step probably seems really simple, but it's really important if you've never made it before. What you're gonna do is you're gonna wash it. And the way to wash it is we're gonna just fill it with water, just a little bit of water, and we're gonna wash it several times. So I got this clear bowl just so you can really see it. I'm mixing it around, and the more mixing we do, you see how the water starts turning a little opaque, a little starchy. You see some of these bubbles are forming over this, and I'll kind of show it. That way you really get to see it nicely. You see the opaqueness and the bubbles forming in there. So the bubbles aren't forming just because I'm stirring it around, guys. We're actually releasing some of the gas that can happen, because when grains are dry, it can cause a lot of gas, right? Which is not good for Vata dosha. But how do we get rid of it? Is by this little churning process, releasing the gas of it. So then I'm just gonna pour this water out on top. You see how cloudy it is. Now I'm gonna put some more water, and we're gonna do this a few times. And you'll start seeing the water get really nice and clear. Then you know you've washed it really nicely. So now we have to really watch what we use. We want to look for organic because we want to make sure we're not putting any of those chemicals, pesticides in ourselves. But back in the day in the classical texts, thousands of years ago in Ayurveda, when we'd wash this, because it was already organic, there was no such thing as non-organic, right? Back then, you could actually use this water, and they talk about using this water as rice water. So if I was just to wash the rice without the dal, and this water that would come off of it, this is a very beneficial thing to have. Today, because of all the GMOs, organic, non-organic, all that stuff, we wash it, we clear it out, we're just gonna get rid of this, we're gonna dump it. And then to make the rice water, you just take the rice and you take the water, and then you just boil it and make rice out of it, but you add 3 times the amount of water. So if you typically use 1 cup of water when you're making rice, put 3 times the amount. And then you just strain the rice out, and then you have beautiful rice water. And then you can drink the rice water as a very good diet, like a hydration drink. You can add some salt, you can add a little pepper, and it's amazing. Okay, so it's starting to get a little bit more clear. Let's do one more here. Beautiful. Oh, nice. Now you can really see the difference. It's not as cloudy as we started off with. So this is fantastic. Now, Kitcheri. This is as simple as it really gets, honestly. What I did was I actually soaked some right here. So I wanted to show you the difference and in the texture. So this, when I push it, it's like I can break it. It's really nice. If I just put it, and I'm gonna try to see if we can get a close-up for you. I'm just gonna push it, and I can break it. It's really tender. It's been hydrating, which means that it is gonna be easier to cook, which means it's gonna be easier to digest. So if you're able to and you have the time, I recommend soaking it. And now depending on where you live, what kind of altitude you live in, if you're in a high area, drier climate, I do recommend soaking it. It just makes it that much easier for you to cook. So this is ready to go, but I'll show you without soaking it how easy it is as well. So we're gonna turn on our stove now, and we're gonna start off with our basic Kitchari recipe. Let's get this guy going. And then we're gonna get rid of this water here, 2 seconds. And I'm gonna use, we can use either, to be honest with you, because this is just soaked, this is what we just did. I'll just use the one we just did so it's easy for you to see. I've got this on. We're gonna go ahead and start off with our oil that we want. I'm using ghee, but you can use avocado oil. If you're in the mood for coconut oil, when would you use these things or the difference between them? Ghee is fantastic. It's tridoshic. So if you're not sure, is my Vata off? Is my Pitta off? Is my Kapha off? You're not sure about all this Ayurveda stuff, ghee is a good way to go. It's really nice. So I'm just gonna start off, let's say, about a teaspoon of ghee. As the stove warms up, you'll see it starting to melt. Once it starts to melt, that's when we're gonna add some of our spices. I'm gonna talk about a few of these spices while we're waiting for it to melt and get ready. So one other spice that I have is called Hing, or asafoetida. I can never say that name right? Just keep rewinding it, it'll be like a good meme hearing me say that. But it's fantastic for Vata dosha. It really helps with gas, bloating, all these kind of things. And whenever we cook any kind of dry lentils, dry beans, very Vata provoking, but the reason we soak it, the way we cook it, the spices we add, helps to eliminate all of that stuff. So this is a fantastic thing. You can buy it in the powder form, usually at your traditional like Asian, Oriental, Indian grocery store. You can even find it online, man. You can find anything online these days. You can even find the original, like it comes in like a little rock form, and you can just grate it in there. Literally, you just need a pinch, and that's why I have it over here, because you're gonna see me just gonna take a pinch of this stuff. We're gonna put it in there, into the ghee, so that way you'll see how it's gonna like sprinkle a little bit. Then we're gonna add Now, if you don't want to add any spices, you don't have to at this point. Just a little hing, and then we'd add the kitcheri in there, and then a little turmeric and a little salt to taste. You add water, you cover it, cook it, and it's done. But I'm going to show you a few little spices as well. Even in the simple kitcheri version, mustard seeds are fantastic. So mustard seeds are considered a little heating in the Ayurveda world. So this is fantastic as a digestive. If you know that your digestion is a little sluggish, it's a little slower, you need a little bit of that spice, but not like a pepper spice, mustard is fantastic. Cumin is great because it's cooling, so it can balance, but still give you the digestive power of both of them. So I like to combine both of them. So you get a little bit of that spice and then a little bit of that cooling, but both of them are fantastic as a digestive together as well. Now our ghee is melting. I'm going to go ahead and literally add a pinch of this hing. Perfect. And then we're going to go ahead and add the mustard seeds, and then once we hear them snap, crackle, pop, then we're going to add the cumin in there. Mustard, it's a little bit thicker, a little bit more dense than the cumin, so we always want to add the mustard in first. Let's see if it's ready. And this is probably about a 1/4 teaspoon because we're not making that much. And you'll see how in a minute it'll start snap, crackle, and popping. As it's doing that, while we're waiting to add the cumin, let me talk to you about some of the other ingredients. We've got the clove. Clove is very heating, but it is going to be a fantastic digestive. If you have more sluggishness, more like heavy feeling, you don't really even gain that much of an appetite and you need to digest things, this will really bring on a little bit of that spice, but it is strong. So I only recommend literally like 1 or 2 pieces of clove. It's pretty strong. The other thing that can also be a great digestive is cinnamon, especially for Vata dosha. Cinnamon is warming, it helps with circulation, especially if you're someone like cold hands and feet. This is fantastic for you guys. You'll see, I'm not going to use all of this stuff, but I'm going to show it to you. Ginger is fantastic as well. Great digestive. If you haven't seen it, ginger pickle is fantastic as well. It's going to be warming. It's going to help restore that digestive power in our body. It's going to help decrease the toxic or ama formation in the body. Garlic. People are like, wait a minute, I've heard garlic is so-called tamasic, if you've heard that word. Tamasic, really, you know, there's not a good or bad connotation. Sometimes you need it. So garlic is great if you want to add a little bit more grounding, a little bit more heaviness to everything. So if your Vata is high, you're feeling a little light, a little spacey, all these kind of things, garlic is fantastic to ground it down as well. Okay, my mustard seeds are starting to snap, crackle, pop a little bit here. So what I'm going to do is turn the stove down so I don't burn anything. And then we're going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of the cumin. And now you really start hearing it snap, crackle, pop. This is the fun part. Literally, this is our simple baseline kitcheri, guys. So now I'm just going to add the water and the kitcheri, straight in there. And you're going to hear it really snap, crackle, pop. Here goes. Nice. So you're just going to scrape it all out. Let's get this bowl out of our way. Now let's mix this guy up. And we're going to add, remember we added a 1/4 cup of the dal, a 1/4 cup of the rice, and I would say it's about 1.5 cups. I'm going to pour it in here just so you get a better idea of how much we're adding in there. We already had probably about 1/2 cup of water in there. And then I'm going to add, right there, perfect. So I added probably another 1/2 cup of water, so about 1 cup of water to that 1/2 cup of rice and dal mix. That way you get a good idea. We're going to add the turmeric. And now you'll see it starting to turn a beautiful golden color. Let's mix it back up. And then all you do is put this on a nice medium heat. That way, and periodically you can stir it so it doesn't stick at the bottom, but we've got that ghee in there, so it should be just fine. It's going to come up to a boiling point. Then you can turn it down to like a medium low and you can just let it cook. And if you like to, you can even cover it. I'm just not going to cover it so that way you get to see it a little bit more. As this cooks, you're set, you're ready to go. It's that easy to make Kitcheri, my friends. And then what we're gonna do is let me show you a modification while this is cooking. Now, this is baseline Kitcheri, guys. If this Kitcheri is gonna turn out a little fluffy, just as if we had rice. So this is just simple cooked rice. The Kitcheri will turn out about like this. It'll be a little bit lighter, a little bit drier. So that Kitcheri is gonna be good for Kapha. Kapha is more heavy, it's more grounding. So if they need a little lightness to balance Kapha out, then this is the way to have the Kitcheri for the Kapha individual. If you are more Vata, which means you already have a lot of dryness, a lot of airiness, you need more like unctuousness and liquid and fluidity in your body, then add in 2 times the water. And that's what we have here, my friends. This is the exact same recipe you just saw me make, but with extra water, and all I did was sprinkle a little cilantro on top. So you see how soupy this Kitcheri is. It is like super soupy. It is awesome. This is gonna be easy to digest. This is fantastic for Vata dosha. This is great for if you're cleansing. So when you do like a spring cleanse or a summer cleanse with us or a fall cleanse, this is very, very easy to digest as one of those mono diet things that you're gonna do. So now you see Kitcheri is boiling over here, my friends. And then this point, beautiful. Once it's almost cooked, what you're gonna do is turn the stove down, add a little salt to your taste, and then you're ready to go. This is simple Kitcheri. So give it a try, experiment with it. Remember, depending on where you live, if you're in already a, let's say, humid, hot climate, not high altitude, it's gonna be much faster. It's gonna require less water. If you're in a higher altitude, drier climate, not as humid, then you're gonna need more water. So we approximated like the water measurement, to about 1.5 cups or so. You may need a little more depending on where you are and the consistency you want. So just take a look within your body, what do you need? Do you need a little bit more soupiness? Do you need a little bit more groundedness? Do you need a little bit more lightness? So see what you need. And then if you need a little bit more spice, you can add in the clove, you can add in the cinnamon, you can add in the ginger, like if you need that little kickstart in your digestion. So this is your baseline Kitcheri, guys. It's gonna cook and it's gonna turn out beautiful. Now I'm gonna show you some modifications. So now we're gonna do modifications of our Kitcheri. So we've started with that baseline Kitcheri. What I've done is just put a new pan on here so it's easy for you to see. I've got the stove on. Again, I'm gonna use ghee. You can use whichever oil you like. Avocado oil is fantastic also. But let's just start off. You can never go wrong with ghee. Let's say this is about a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more, but I love ghee. Okay, so we're gonna let it melt in here. As we're melting it, I'm gonna show you the ingredients I'm gonna use. So let's say, when would you use this? Why would you use this modification? One, if you need to get fiber. So let's say you're doing a cleanse or you're doing something where you just need a little bit more fiber and roughage. There's some constipation going on. Maybe there's some heaviness or maybe there's some lightness. So for the heaviness, I'll show you some of the spices that we're gonna throw in there to help mitigate that heaviness and balance that heaviness out and kind of crush through the heaviness. But if you're feeling a little air and light and kind of need to ground a little bit more, I'll show you which vegetables we're gonna use to kind of ground down as well. And then we're gonna end up with a Kitcheri with these great veggies, still easy to digest, still fantastic for you, and it's gonna taste delicious. Our ghee is melting here, so we're gonna saute. I'm gonna add in some of the spices this time. So let's start off with our little pinch of hing that we've talked about, just as a nice digestive. And honestly speaking, I use hing in everything, guys. If I'm making Mexican, I'm making Italian, you're not really gonna taste it unless you overdo it. If you overdo it, you'll never forget the taste of hing, I promise you. So just as an experiment, overdo it one time and you won't forget the taste. But a pinch like this, you'll never forget it. But it really helps with like gas, bloating, indigestion. So I almost use it in almost anything I cook. Now I'm gonna add in 1/4 teaspoon of the mustard seeds. We're gonna let them crackle a little bit here. I'm gonna go ahead and use my curry leaf this time also. I love this. It's a nice, flavorful, digestive, straight from the plant. You only need like 2 or 3 pieces. You don't need very much. So I've just washed it, and just knowing the quantity we have, I just love this stuff. So I'm gonna add 3 pieces. You really don't need as much. And if you break it apart, it really helps the flavors to come out. So I just like to cut it once, and then we're gonna pop it in here, and you're gonna hear it sprinkle. As soon as this warms up, we're gonna throw in a little bit of the cumin, about another 1/4 teaspoon, and you'll hear it start snap, crackle, popping in just a second here. Okay, this one, if we're gonna make it a little bit spicy, I'm gonna use a little ginger, a little clove, and 1 cinnamon stick. And it just adds a nice little pop, but not spicy where like, oh my God, I need some water while I'm eating it, but just enough to help the digestion going. So let's grab this guy, and okay. I'm starting to hear it like snap, crackle, pop a little bit, so that way nothing burns. I'm gonna go ahead and add in, this is probably about 1 teaspoon of grated ginger. And let's go ahead and put our cinnamon stick in here. I'm gonna just use the cinnamon stick to move that ginger around too. Beautiful. I'm gonna put in just 2 cloves of clove, or 2 pieces of clove. If I wanted it to be a little bit more grounding, I would go ahead and just shred in, or you can cut it and chop it, maybe 1 clove of garlic. So let's just put it in here. And we're gonna, it's starting to smell good. Beautiful. Nice. Okay, let's mix all of this up real quick. Okay, let's add our veggies in. Let's start off with our heavier, harder to cook veggies, move to our lighter veggies. So sweet potato, a little bit more grounding, so we can add a few pieces of this. Carrots, a few pieces for grounding. Green beans, great source of some fiber, considered tridoshic, so Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. It is fantastic. So let's throw these in because I found some fresh. Now, leafy greens, great source of fiber also. So depending on what's available, when you're making it, this is just some fresh chard actually out of the garden, because a friend of mine has a lot of chard. So I got that. And then mustard greens, spinach, kale, all these are fantastic. Let's mix all of this up. And then, very simply, nice thing is we're gonna have it cook all together. So we have our soaked rice and dal. Really simple. Remember, we can just wash it. It doesn't have to be absolutely soaked, but soaking it overnight really helps that digestive process and get rid of a lot of that gas and airiness of it. I'm gonna just pour it straight in now. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to just turn it back up. Now we can add in our turmeric. Now turmeric is fantastic, guys. It is so good, like antimicrobial, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, a great blood cleanser. It's just awesome. So you'll see a lot of Indian cooking getting spiced with turmeric. You really can't go wrong with it. This is probably about a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon. Mix it up. I've got the stove on a medium to high right now. I'm gonna bring it up to a boil and then put it down to a solid medium. And then you're just gonna let it cook. And when we cook it, especially if you're doing this for a cleanse, really let it cook so it becomes, you don't want any of the vegetables to be al dente, right? You want it to be mushy, soft, almost like everything's kind of one all in there. But you'll be able to see the vegetables distinctly, but they're really soft when you put them into your mouth too. So this is a great modification when you're cleansing, you need some fiber. If you need a little spice, you need a little grounding. So now you know how to modify that basic recipe. Remember, we have the basic recipe over here. You saw how easy it was. Not fully cooked yet because we wanted to show you the modifications of it. And then another thing that I just want to show you, is you can separate the Kitcheri also. You can have rice and you can have dal. Same exact ingredients, guys, but taste totally different when you separate it out. So we've got the rice, which we've talked about on how to make it, but just as a quick review, you just take the rice, we wash it until that water gets clear like we've talked about. Then you're gonna cook the rice, a little bit of ghee, just the rice and the water. As it gets cooked, you can add a little salt to your tasting, and it's done. It's that simple. The dal, here I have soaked the dal. Again, when you're making it by itself, it makes it that much easier. So when I soak it and I push it, it's just so easy to break. Like I can just push my finger into it and then it breaks the dal. So you see that's already in the cooking process, which makes it that much easier to digest. And we're gonna do exactly what you just saw me do, but we're just gonna put the dal in there. And then what I'll do with the dal is I'll add twice the amount of water. Once the dal is cooked, then I like to take a little whisk and then whisk it. So that way you're making like this soup out of it. It'll be like a little bit thicker soup. And I've got one version that's made right here, and I'm gonna show you. This is just dal, and what I've done, as you can see this, it's like a little soup. And all it has, simple ingredients, is the dal, the water, the ghee, salt, and turmeric. And then I just popped a little cilantro on top. Now cilantro is cooling, so it is fantastic. If you've got some Pitta issues, you need a little bit cooling, then put that cilantro on top afterwards. Now you see this is coming up to a nice boil. So I'm just gonna turn it down slightly. Beautiful. And we're just gonna let it cook. And once you'll see the dal is totally cooked, because then it's ready to go and it's ready to eat, guys, ready to serve. You saw how much I did. It's only a 1/4 cup, so you don't need very much because you want to make the food fresh, especially when you're cleansing, right? You saw how much a 1/4 cup of rice and a 1/4 cup of dal is making. So if you're just eating it by yourself, you can just do that much at a time. So that way it's plenty for like a couple of meals for the day if you're cleansing. Otherwise, it's great to have like even 2 people could eat out of this. If you need a little bit more, depending on the number of people, then you can add a little bit more as well. So now you see, once this is done, I've got some made already right here. You see how it's a little bit drier compared to the soupy version. So you see the difference. So the drier one is gonna be fantastic for that Kapha person, right? Because they don't want that much liquid, they don't want that much heaviness, versus the liquid is gonna be fantastic for that Vata person and much easier to digest. Now, the one with the veggies does not always have to be dry, guys. If you want veggies, let's say you're a Vata person, but you need the veggies or you need some of the spices that we used, you need some of that grounding in there, make it exactly what we just did, double the water, and then you'll be perfect right there. So you've got so many different variations of Kitcheri, guys. We've got the basic Kitcheri. Remember, simple ingredients, rice, dal, ghee, a little hing, and salt to taste, and a little turmeric. That's your baseline ingredients. Then you saw all the different spices that we can use to modify this. So play with it, see what you need for your digestion and your system, see how it goes. Play with it. Add more water based on where you live, what you're needing for today, whether it's Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. If you have a Pitta imbalance, then just be careful with some of the spices that we use, like the mustard seeds, the clove, the cinnamon, which is already in there, and the ginger, because those can be more on that heating, spicy side. If you need grounding, remember you can have the grounding veggies. The garlic is fantastic for grounding as well. And if you're Kapha, you need a little spice to cut through that stagnation and, kind of increase that digestion a little bit. So then you can use some of these spices that are a little bit more warming and heating, but you can have it a little bit drier. And then the last thing I'll say about Kitcheri is you can bake Kitcheri as well. So exact thing that you just saw us do in mixing all of this stuff, and then at home, I'll do it in a cast iron pan. Because then you just take that pan off the stove, stick it straight into the oven, 350 degrees. Again, based on, humidity, altitude, all these kind of things. You may need a little bit more water, but just like when you're baking anything, just watch it halfway through, If you need add a little water halfway through, feel free to do that as well. But it is fantastic. And then you get all the benefits of the cast iron pan too. So lots of different ways to make the Kitcheri. Have fun with it, see how your digestion feels, and enjoy it, because that's the best way, is to experiment, to learn, and experience it for yourself. So thanks for joining us for Kitcheri. Stay tuned for more.